Welcome, Steve, to Me Time.
Heard many episodes,
Oh,
several episodes, and of course, I started with the first one in James,
oh,
and I listened to Kirsten and
oh
Tim,
yeah,
and those are outside. Those were all fantastic, and
yeah.
there have been some since then that I've missed. I'm behind,
Oh, Steve,
and
you don't have to
I
listen
must be
to any.
chastised for that.
No, you don't have to listen to any. This would be like a brand new experience with like you don't know what's coming, and it'll be spontaneous, and we'll make it like super fun. Did you by any chance? So you listened to the James episode,
Of course, you have to.
the
And
peanut puppets?
James very quickly went to a dark and dirty place,
I
and
did.
even like more quickly than you would expect. And
It was
so,
right away.
yeah, exactly. So you went
Right
down the
away.
rabbit hole, and I appreciate and respect it.
And
So,
we stayed there. We stayed there. We stayed there a while. Yeah. Yes, but like me time can be anything. It doesn't have to be, it can be dark and dirty. It can be introspective. It can be, reflective. It can be all the things. So, but Steve, I know who at least the majority of the listeners who listen to this podcast, I know Psych, obviously, and
at least a solid 6%.
a solid a solid 6%.
The rest are back in the game fans.
There are zero Back in the Game fans, even though I loved Back in the Game. I really loved that show. But when we were in Chicago at PsychCon, we had mentioned, I was like, I want to have you on Me Time. And you're like, anytime. And now you're like, man, why did I say that? Why did
No,
I'm kidding?
I actually realized I'm the worst guest to have on Me Time because I am terrible at Me Time.
You're the perfect guest then, because we can actually talk about your me time and why you're not very good at it and what that looks like for you. And maybe you'll even leave and be like, I learned a thing or two and I'm gonna really practice more me time. Who knows?
Well, as a writer, the problem is I have nothing but me time. It's me time all the time.
Right.
And so I usually fill that with work. So I'm going to I'm going to sort it out. I've got lots. I've got lots I'm bringing to the table today. None of it good, but I have lots that I'm bringing, and we're going to talk it through. And I'm excited to learn to laugh and cry and do all the emotions.
Look, you can be like Joel McHale, who basically dodged the me time question for the entire episode, which was hilarious and very funny. Or we can just go there. But you just mentioned writing and being your like you have a lot of me time because you are a writer, but a lot of that time you are sort of, or at least probably, getting into your like creative mode to write. So I don't know if that's necessarily me time, but like, can I just be this person and say, what is your process? Like, seriously, because I find myself, I will procrastinate. I will literally clean everything in my apartment. I will do everything because I'll be like, you know what? I can't write until it's clean. I can't like do this thing I need to do until it's clean. So I'm a master procrastinator. But what does that look like for you? How do you like get in the space to even like come up with an idea?
Well, that's the key. And what you're doing when you're cleaning up your apartment is your home or your backyard or wherever you are at the time, a hotel room or at any time, what you're doing is you're actually doing positive things for the other parts of your life. So I don't think of procrastination as, I think procrastination is doing nothing. And I don't write this space right here. This is my office where I write at home. I am not very productive here because there is always laundry to do. There's something to do in the house. There's something you can clean. There's always that pull for the second things get challenging and you have to think too much. So I like to write out of the house. And for me, that involves something that's very much a me time is I love to write in restaurants. And I like to write in restaurants or a place where it's something outside of my own space. Now, the restaurants I like to write in are not cool restaurants.
What does
Like,
that mean? Yeah.
well, for me, my best writing time is in the morning. And so I like to write, I get the kids to school, we do all that stuff, and then it's time, then it's me time. and it's time to write. But I usually want to go to a breakfast restaurant. Breakfast, far and away my favorite meal of the day.
Very
The
important
reason,
meal of the
yeah,
day.
it's very important. I know you're not so much a fan of the breakfast
How do you know that?
because I listen to Me Time. So
Okay, go on.
so I know. And but for me, I love breakfast. And for me, it's like I feel so bad if I'm with my computer at a table and anybody else could be using that table for because all my friends have been waiters. I know that I'm taking tips and time away, and I just don't want to be that guy who's just hanging out and setting up a whole office. You know, I don't roll calls. I rarely answer, although Chris Enzi has a magical way of calling me the second my food is set down at the table.
Oh, by the way, for people who don't know, Chris Henze is one of our executive producers of Psych and also one of Steve's best friends and also Steve's manager. Go on.
Yeah, and also one of the greatest golfers in the history of the Valley, the San Fernando Valley. So let's just put that in there.
He's a top valley golfer. Okay.
But the restaurants I like to ride in, usually I don't want it too noisy or too quiet, which means I like to write in some place where the average age is 30 years older than I am. So as long as there are some very, very old senior citizens there,
It's your
like the perfect restaurant is a place called Ruby's Diner, which
plan.
is a 1940s themed. There used to be a lot more before the pandemic. Now there's a handful of them hanging on. It's a great breakfast place, and yes, if you ever want to feel so young and so vibrant,
Go to Ruby's Diner.
it's Ruby's Diner. Yes, and I carry my own defibrillator, which is great because I am at
You.
the ready in case anything happens.
Is Ruby's a chain? Or
Yes,
oh,
it's a
okay.
chain.
I've seen
In
her.
fact, they're all over California. This is how uncool all my restaurant selections are. They're usually at the end of piers in beach cities or downstairs in a mall.
Uh,
And there's a handful of Ruby's diners that I go to that are 40 minutes away from my house. That's how
wow.
crazy it is. But on that drive, on that time there, I'm able to get into the correct headspace. And it's hard for the way that I write. And I'm not going to say I'm super unique, but I'm always writing usually comedy, usually something happy, something at least positive, even in dark stuff that I've done. It's usually so if I'm in a very dark place, it's not helpful. And so it's nice to be near a pier or around a bunch of very, very old people because,
You feel that's very funny. And also, does that put you in a headspace of like I feel good? I feel
oh yeah,
positive. I feel
yeah,
like
no, I feel good being in a restaurant and writing, and breakfast is amazing.
yeah,
And especially if you go to like the South, if you go to the South, it's the capital of breakfast in the entire world.
that is
So it
true.
seems like they give it its proper due.
What do you know about breakfast places in the South?
Oh, well, I would say that breakfast places in the South have the greatest. I mean, if I had to say, something that three things that I had to live with.
Oh, we haven't even
One,
gotten this, but
I
let's go.
know that's
Three
going to
things.
be at the end. Well, we'll put it at
Oh,
the
all
end.
right. Then we'll save
But
it to the end. But
but
three.
one of them has to be the Bonuts at Biscuit Love in Franklin, Tennessee. And I'm sure everybody's had Bonuts, which are a combination of donuts and biscuits, right?
I've never even heard
It's
of it.
Well, they do it the best at Biscuit Love. I don't know if anybody else
Oh,
does
nuts.
Bonuts. Yeah, like
I need a donut. I need a
yes.
donut. Sounds bad. It sounds bad. It sounds a little like dirty or something, but I love this. I've never heard of this.
Well, if
Biscuit
you
Love in Franklin, Tennessee. When were you in Franklin? Oh, Franklin is near Nashville,
It's
right?
yeah, it's just outside. It's one of the most beautiful, like it's like Hallmark went down to Franklin, Tennessee, and they said, "This is too much, guys. We gotta just dial it back." It's an amazing place, and it's an awesome place to vacation, the greatest music down there, the greatest musicians. When you
Yeah.
walk through Nashville, there's a guy on a street corner with a bucket trying to get money is the best guitarist you've ever heard.
Yeah,
It's like
that's
it's
true.
so hard to get on a stage in Nashville that there is just so much talent every single step that you take. And it's a great city. It's you know, sometimes it gets too hot, sometimes it gets a little too cold, but if
Yeah,
you time it right, also the home of the Tennessee Titans. And so
yes, James.
James Rodriguez
Yes,
will tell you that it's a great place to be. But I really do. I have an unnatural love for the South, mostly for the food.
natural. Uh, the food is special. It's a thing. Like I and the hospitality also a thing. I remember growing up in Kentucky, we would take these road trips with my family. We'd drive down to Florida and we'd stop in some places in Tennessee and Alabama. I remember one time when we were really young, we were at Shoney's. Do you
Oh
know this?
yeah.
Oh yeah, Shoney's. And I remember the waitress came over and she said, as we ordered our biscuits, because biscuits are a thing, and she said, "Do you to my brother at the time, who I want to say was maybe 5, would you like some jelly with your biscuits?" And he was like, "What?" And she's like, "Would you like some jelly with your biscuits?" And he just said, "No." And she walked away and he said, "Why would she ask me if I want chili with my biscuits?" And it's one of my favorite childhood memories. But that's like Shoney's, the booth at Shoney's, the buffet at Shoney's. I do remember that, but I've never been to Biscuit Love.
Well,
I-
you know what? I have a Shoney's story as well, and I hope we can keep this
Oh
because
yeah, man.
we were on our way from Mardi Gras down to, let's say, Key West or something, and there was a Shoney's, and they had a burger bar, which is I guess like a salad bar that my friend ended up getting. He's all, I'll try the burger bar. So we went. I did not get the burger bar. I thought it was far too risky a choice. And we went over to the salad bar thing, and the burger bar was one of those big metal trays that, you know, like would have a
Yeah,
salad bar,
yeah.
and it was swimming in brown liquid, and there were 3 burgers that were floating. I don't know how the burgers themselves were floating,
That's
but
weird.
so I haven't been to Shoney's in a while, but it was always a fun stop
It was
on the road trip.
Shoney's was a didn't they close? I think they closed.
Okay, well then great, then we can slander them all we want.
Oh, exactly. So you like to go to restaurants, these restaurants that have a much older crowd, we will say, and
At breakfast, yes,
at breakfast. Yes. And this is where you do your best work. This is
because I have this intense guilt over keeping keeping a table. You know, I mean, maybe I like to go to restaurants that are on the verge of closing. That that need my
how,
assistance. But I do have a lot of places that I feel like I'm helping them stay very not just afloat, but vibrant in the
right.
restaurant
Right.
space.
Right. Now, so writing for you feels like me time. The way I sort of describe me time is like the thing that when you feel like your tank's on empty and you're stressed out, which I don't think I've ever seen you stressed out. I actually don't think I've ever seen you like, you know, have a moment even where like you would like snap or be upset about something. Like you are truly, that's why I would say like you must be great at me time because you're like one of the happiest, I would say, like excited, even like you love life.
But
What do you feel? What does that like look like for you? Like when you're like, oh man, my creative tank is on empty. I'm on empty. I'm tired. I can feel myself getting snappy. And you're like, you know what I need?
there's a handful of those things.
Let's
There's a
go.
handful of things. So I always used to do this thing with Psych as I would get when we were completely tapped out. I would always say, let's get the room on their feet. And we would go walk. And because our offices were in Manhattan Beach, I'm sure I've told this story on many of your other successful podcasts. But we would go for a walk and we would just keep walking and by the time we get somewhere we would have ideas. You know, the first 10 minutes are just talking about nonsense and you don't even realize you're solving problems or you're coming up with ideas. And one of my favorite days ever in the writers room is we walked all the way down to the Manhattan Beach Mall and we found a bunch of chairs in the center of the mall, and we broke one of Kel's episodes right there in front of the Apple store and probably the Pottery Barn kids. And it
Oh,
was awesome. And it's like, oh, we're here, we're outside. So, there's something about sunlight too that's so
yeah.
important, and just being on your feet and moving. Well, I would say one of my things that I do that's just for me is I walk, and I walk way more than I should. Not just because I have the step counter on the watch, or I used to have the Fitbit and all that stuff, but like if I had a car that would break down all the time, and the dealership was about 2.5 miles away, and I would just drop the car off and walk home. And so, and it was okay. Like walking down a busy boulevard of cars, you would see people, and you're like, you're walking down this 9-lane street, and they're like, oh, somebody had a DUI.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
know.
like, no, I'm just walking because I can get the walking in. And I would say that I hike, but I don't really hike. I like to go to trails that have slight inclines to them, and the occasional dips. But
Yes.
yeah, if there's like any rocks, if there's rocks involved, if there's stepping up to anything, then we've lost the entire.
That's too much thinking. It sounds
Well,
almost meditative for you to walk.
and yeah, and that's when I started listening to podcasts. And one of my favorites is The Psychologists Are In, a
Oh,
psych
what?
rewatch podcast.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. It's so good. You get so much information, and you learn about yourself and the business and all kinds
Yourself.
of things.
Yes, yes, you do. You do. I love that you listen to the Psychologist are in a Psych Rewatch podcast when you have your me time while walking. I love that. So walking and I love that you did that with the writers. I know the writers used to always talk about how they loved the way you would sort of notice if the creative juices need to get flowing, like shifting things a little bit. And because I remember didn't you take the writers on a train ride at the
Oh
beginning
yeah.
of every year? Yeah, to like,
That
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I would say second
Oh,
to
yeah, yeah.
being to doing that is trains. I love trains. I want When I write, I want the outside to change. I want to be in a new place. And when you're on a train, it's always changing. You look out the window, you're somewhere else. And I generally go two ways. I go north or south. And when I go north, I go to Santa Barbara, and I go south, I go down to San Diego. And they're both amazing destinations. You get down to the train station, hop on a train, you find a seat, and if I have a deadline that I haven't been able to hit for months and months, I know that I'm going to be able to, if not finish, be almost finished by the time I get back on the train day.
Wow. So
And
they're like magical for you.
it's so magical because you sit down, you're at a table, there's nothing else you can do. And by the way, the other thing with restaurants for me is I do not want internet access. I don't want to sign into anybody's Wi-Fi. I don't want anything to be able to reach me
Yeah.
besides my phone. And even that, I like to keep it in the other room when I'm trying to work. And so for me, it's like that's the isolation. That's the way that I can get away from that. And then just the ride to San Diego is amazing. The ride to Santa Barbara is even more so because it's further and all that. But you have like a couple hours on the train. You get off the train, you walk around, find a place to eat, you're riding again. And you finish eating, you walk around. You can either take the trolley down in San Diego, or you can walk up and down State Street in Santa Barbara, and then you get back on the train. You have a couple hours again, and it's a complete day that's been buffered by all these amazing little walks and a restaurant you don't usually see, and it's really great, and you feel like you're traveling. You
I
know,
love that. Yeah. It's like you're inspired by, of course, you would feel like you're traveling, but like all these different stops and they all feel different. Fun fact about me for about a year and a half, I would take the train from LA to Las Vegas, New Mexico, not Las
oh,
Vegas.
nice.
Yeah, which
Is
is
that the Eagle, the Amtrak Eagle, or is that the
no.
Chief, the Southwest Chief?
Yes, it's that. It's the
Okay.
Southwest Chief. So it goes all the way though to Chicago.
Yes.
I would go overnight, get a ranch out there. And Steve, I love that you just said trains. First off, trains anywhere, I think are just there's like you step into a whole other like you're right. The second you step onto the train, you feel like you're traveling. You
Yes.
feel like you're away. But my favorite, like I used to go to tracks at Union Station
Yes,
and
yes.
I'd go to tracks and like I'd have a drink. I would feel like I was in like I don't know, a different era, and you like have a drink, you get on the train, you have dinner on the train, and then you get your little overnight sleeper and you sleep overnight. And then like by noon the next day, I was in New Mexico. But it was, I mean, you could fly and drive in way less time, but you lose all that inspo and magic and everything.
Absolutely.
I love that you said that. Steve, that's so magical. That's so cool.
We did a trip a few years ago with our boys where we took the train from Union Station up to Emeryville, which
Okay.
is I believe the Coast Starlight. I'm gonna stop naming the trains because I think it's making me look worse.
No, it's not. I love this actually. I love all of this. It's like go ahead.
And so we took that, and that was a day, and that is an amazing, amazing trip. So I think it's 12 hours. It might be two, it could be 12. I think it's about 12. But you get off there at 10, and then in the morning, there's a train that goes from Emeryville to Chicago. And so we took those two trains, and it was so extraordinary. And they time it really well. And not to disparage some states, Iowa, I'm sorry in advance, and parts of Utah, but they time it well to the most picturesque stuff
Yep.
is during the daytime,
Yes.
and the, let's say, slightly less picturesque stuff is during a nighttime. And it's an incredible ride. And they have these guys that are just like they're docents, but they're old retired dudes, or not old retired, they're experienced retired guys, and
Yeah.
they narrate all the way through where all the gold rush sites, and it's
Oh,
just the
I
most
love
fascinating, interesting thing. And I don't know, Maggie, if you know, but people who choose to travel across the country on a train are a unique subset of humanity.
I don't know what you're talking about.
They are fascinating.
And they are. But you know what is so fun about that is like on a plane, you're never going to like sit across from someone. So I don't know if it's the same on the other Amtraks, but on the one I was taking constantly, you'd get your dinner ticket. And if you wanted to go to dinner, you were just put at a table.
Yeah.
And then they put other people at that table. And you had to sit across from people. You could choose to talk or not, but of course, I'm a talker, so I would talk. And you're not kidding. You just meet very interesting people, very interesting stories. It's a wild experience that I don't, unless it's like one of those, if you know, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I
It's
know
it,
you know
it's
what
exactly.
I did there. Uh, but Steve, okay, keep going. I love this so
It,
much.
in fact, we took a trip to Alaska a couple weeks ago, and it was a one-way cruise from Vancouver all the way up to a town called Seward, which is a few hours south of Anchorage. So
Okay.
I was very determined to take the Alaska train from Seward up to Anchorage, and it was one of the most beautiful, amazing rides I've ever seen. The scenery is incredible, and you're seeing these things that you would never thought of, like through the avalanche zones. They have these World War II turrets that are mounted under tents
Whoa.
for when the snow gets so much, they know it's going to eventually avalanche. So they decide when they want to fire these things and make the avalanche happen because it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah, so they would like decide and
Yeah,
then
they'll just like, okay, now we can manage it one way or the other. But it's really just an amazing ride, and fantastic, and then something that I would have never thought of if we didn't accidentally get the one-way cruise. Not accidentally, it worked into our dates. And the most important thing of our trip was we wanted to go out of Vancouver and just go to Vancouver for fun, which for those of you who don't know, was where we spent a good chunk of the last 18 years
yeah,
making Psych
yeah.
movies and television programs.
Yeah,
So
that's So cool. And it's so wild. Like I was like, you, because Tim was texting on the group thread saying he was there. And then you were like, we were just there. And I was immediately, I was jealous. I was nostalgic. I was all the things. So I was like, oh, Vancouver, that's like our second home. And to be there and not have to work. It's a such a beautiful place too. But we want to be there and work.
Yeah, exactly. We're ready for the entertainment business to start going
Back.
again.
Yes.
That would be magnificent.
So Steve's me time so far is walking, getting on your feet, and encouraging other people, and also trains. The magic of trains. I want to see these pictures. We need some pictures.
Okay, I'll send you some pictures.
Alaska. Yes.
Yeah.
What an incredible trip. Wait, one way. So you flew back from Anchorage to
So
LA?
from Anchorage, and here's another thing that that I think is one of my favorite things is nobody loves going to a new place the second time more than me. And I will explain that.
What?
I like going somewhere new, but I need to scout it out. I need to be there first, and then I want to go back. So for me, like a lot of my me time is I'll road trip somewhere on my own, or I'll go down to San Diego. I'll go to La Jolla or something. I'll find a place, and then immediately I want to bring the family. I want to go back because now I know. Okay, there's this. This is great. This is less great. This is and especially with cities. Like
Mhm.
the first time I went to Nashville, I'm like, okay, I think I kind of get it. This is not Nashville, and then I found Franklin, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I love to go back to somewhere that I've enjoyed the first time. And the funny thing about what happened on that trip is I thought, oh, Anchorage, great. I've never been to a city in Alaska. Let's spend 3 days in Anchorage.
Yeah.
That's 2 days too many in Anchorage. Not to disparage the people of Anchorage. They may agree with me because, first of all, they forgot to have the sunset. So it's 22 hours of daylight,
Yep. That's
which
right.
is
Oh my God.
fine if that's what they want.
Oh,
Fine.
wow.
Okay.
Huh?
But I didn't, we thought we'd go up to Denali, but that's like a whole day and you have to stay overnight. So we ended up just kind of chilling out in Anchorage and bowling and
Oh,
going to
okay.
the
Okay.
going to the movies. Actually, the bowling was amazing and all that. But now it's like I know
I didn't do that.
you just thumbs down the bowling.
I guess I did. Yeah, bowling. Fun. It read my mind. Uh, I mean, you
But
think Anchorage, you think like just scenery and maybe like, cool like coffee shops and coziness and I don't know. So
I liked all the other towns a little bit more, and I enjoy it. But here's what happened. So I'm thinking, okay, that's too much. On the third day, I discovered two of my favorite places to eat, and now I'm ready for another trip to Anchorage. One, of course, is, and I'm sure you know this. You're gonna guess. What we should say it at the same time. You're gonna say Moose Tooth Pizza, right? Okay,
oh yeah.
exactly. So
What?
Moose Moose Tooth Pizza. It isn't made with real moose and
Oh,
doesn't have any teeth in it, but it's fantastic. And one of the greatest ice cream places I've ever been to, a place called Wild Scoops. So
my God.
that alone has fired me up for another trip to Anchorage, which will happen 15, 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very exciting because there'll probably be another place that I'll want to go to. But I like to scout a place out and then go back.
I love that. You're a repeat visitor, but it's very different. I kind of like that you're like, oh, I want to go alone and have my me time, but also like, see so because in a way you get to go back and then almost be like, oh, we should go here. Oh,
Yeah.
we should go there, rather than everybody at the same time being like, well, where should we eat tonight? Or what is important? Like I kind of love that. It makes you can pack more into a trip that way with
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think traveling for me is just eating in a different city. And then also there's some things to see and, and a hotel and
Isn't that everyone over like, okay, unless you're like, I am very, and I am an outdoorsy person, so I do like to do one of those activities, but for the most part, after a certain point in your life, isn't it
yeah,
all
for sure.
that? It's like, oh, I want to go see the art and the things, yes, but also where are we eating?
Yes,
And
exactly.
yes. And
Well,
then
I mean,
yeah.
because if someone says to me, "Hey, we're going to Vancouver," immediately I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, the buttermilk fried chicken at Nightingale,"
Yes,
and
exactly.
or Joey, obviously, which is a great place to to have a drink if you'd like, or to have food. But there's just like so many places that you love and you love to get to go back and see again.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, great. Okay, so now we've learned Steve's me time. You're very good at this, Steve. Eh,
I don't know. This doesn't feel like these are all usually they're involving working or or being being alone, not by your own choice.
But it's also like I always say, me time can be your me time can be with people. Your me time can be with your dog. Your me time could be traveling. What it's whatever it is that makes you happy. And like listening to you talk about all of this, you're like, oh, this is where I feel good. I feel inspired. I feel connected. So we have
Yeah.
walking, we have trains, and we have scouting places and then returning to them. Scouting places one time and then returning to them. I like
Going to going back to a new place.
going
That's the
back.
guy.
Oh, I love that. That sounds like a title
Which
for something, or like
y-
a Steve. That does sound like a Hallmark movie.
you know what? And we can make like 30 of them in a row.
Exactly. I love that. Okay, great. Oh my God. I feel like you have more.
Well, the one that I would do when the show was going, and still now, it's like I think when if the bottom has fallen out, I like to be in a movie theater
Yeah.
and to see a movie. It's like it's fine these movies that come on. I watched a movie that I really enjoyed called Hitman
Mhm.
with Glenn Powell, which I thought was really fun. Richard Linklater was
Yeah.
it was totally fun. I
Yeah.
wished I'd seen that movie in a theater because I think I would have enjoyed it even more. And
Yeah.
it's
I tried watching it on my TV the other night as well, and I was sort of like, oh, okay, this feels like big movie experience.
yeah,
Big
exactly.
movie theater experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's like when you watch with your kids and they're looking at their phone and like you just like just look give give them a second.
And
It's so hard to like that we do television, and it used to be that the studios and the networks would say we got to make more second screen information. It's like we work so hard on these stupid little clues and these twists, and we want someone looking up, when Corbin made when Corbin made Major League 3, and it's like we don't, we
exactly.
want people to pay attention and in the movie theater. And by the way, because I'm a writer, I'm able to go to the 10:30 showing of anything or the 10 o'clock, which is ideal. And
Yeah.
like for me, the most ideal workday is I take the kids to school, I go to breakfast, it's me and the 85-year-olds. We're having a great time. I get a bunch of work done. Then there's a 10:15 movie.
Oh
And
God.
I go in there. Perhaps the theater is empty. It's just me. So, and if I get there early, I grab my notebook and I start writing on it. Well, but if I don't have my notebook, I'll show you. This is gonna I do this. I write on popcorn napkins ideas in the dark. So you can see,
God.
like a crazy person, most of it is completely illegible, but there's
But not
endless,
to you,
there's,
it's
yeah,
you know
there's
exactly what it
endless. And I don't know what any of this means. Um,
Okay, yeah, take back what I said.
Oh, actually, I do know what this one means.
Okay, good.
Uh, but usually you'll write in the dark, and so it's funny because I get like 15 napkins out of the when I get at the popcorn counter, and they're like, "What is wrong with this guy?" And I go,
He's
"Some of
very
these, yes, some of these have made it into season finales of of our
I love
shows."
this.
So
I
I'm always
love
inspired
that.
by watching something good. I'm inspired by watching something bad because I go, maybe I see what they did wrong, and then I'm like, God, I don't know why this is bad because all the pieces were there. It just didn't
Right,
come
right.
together. And
Yeah,
I always say it's a miracle anything gets made. It's and a miracle anything's good
right.
as well. So it's like there's multiple miracles involved with everything. And
Yeah.
some of the best scripts we've had, I thought, were a little disappointing in episodes. And some of the scripts, I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
cross your fingers of like, oh, it came out great. So,
Wow.
and of course, that's so much a tribute to you guys who are elevating material and
No,
And,
I always say no, it starts with the writing. Like we bring the characters to life, but you guys have this. I mean, it's a whole writing is so creative, and it's also quite like a discipline that I even in trying have struggled with a little. Like I have such respect for writers, and I love how you do it because I think I'm learning from you the things that I think bug me a little bit, like because I need to move. Steve, I bought one of those walking pad things for under my desk.
oh,
So I
wow.
basically have like a walking treadmill under my desk. My preference would be to be outside, but like because I do so much work at my computer now, which is a whole new thing for me, I have to move and like, but here I can like open the windows and I can kind of walk and I can still get my work done and whatever. So I totally relate to that. And I'm like, oh, I'm learning. I mean, I feel like I've learned so much from you, but like I'm learning today. I'm learning some new things. And it makes sense how like you're truly one of the most like you have an infectious joy about you that everybody feels like every time we're around you. Like it's the greatest. Steve is the greatest. You all know this. We talk about him all the time on the other podcast, but also like he naturally attracts great people. And if people like don't fit into that, we had a no a-hole policy, as you used to talk about on Psych. They just sort of fall out, like they're out. They can't. And now it's like making a lot of sense because you're really good at like in your day, it just sounds like finding the things that you enjoy and doing them while also still getting your work done.
Hopefully getting my work done.
Like
A
that's
lot of times
hard to
just
do.
doing the fun part, but yes. Well,
It's
and
really hard to do.
it's enthusiasm, and I think that's the most important thing. And I think, as a writer, I mean, you want personal development and purpose, right? That's one of the cornerstones of if you're going to say the easy three, what are the three things that you can't live without, which we'll do later.
Yeah,
And,
we'll get to that in a moment.
personal development is one of it. You want to get better at all the times. And for me,
Right.
it's like I am always learning. I love masterclass. I love to learn from anybody I can. I have so many screenwriting books from and they're a lot of their advice is really, really wrong, but I can always learn something. I can always learn something. And so I'm always looking to dial in a little better and to improve my skilled writing, because I think with life experience and hopefully wisdom, you can improve in such a way as long as your enthusiasm never wanes. And I
Yeah.
haven't lost my enthusiasm for any of this. In fact, it just gets better. I can't wait to go to a meeting just so I can walk around the lot.
Oh,
I love hanging out, walking around the lot. I've
yeah.
been so many places I shouldn't be on movie sets, and so, but it's excitement, and I'm happy to be there. And I think a lot of it too is like when I'm directing, when I get the chance to direct, I'm so happy that the days get long. And if you have the greatest day ever, they schedule you 10 hours, if you're doing French hours, or
Right, right,
12. 12
right.
for us, it's 12, for
Yeah.
our budget, it's 12. And I know when you get down to that 10th and 11th hour, everybody has been pouring out their soul. They're putting everything in. A lot of people are carrying very heavy track and equipment. A lot of
Yeah.
people are just burying themselves emotionally, and that's is more taxing than anything I do sitting behind the director's chair. So for me, it's like I do the one thing they always tell me I can't do is I run on set. If I have a note for delay,
Oh,
I
there's
don't. I never yell it from the village, because that's rude and disrespectful. But unless they're like, just tell me, like James will go, just tell me how you want to say it. Uh, but if I go through there, I make sure the coast is clear because I'm 6'8", and I rush up there and I say, this is what I want to do. I want to do that. And then I rush back, because if I have that much energy as the writer and director and executive producer, which is a title I will always carry, whether I'm doing any executive producing or not, then it's like, okay, well, I guess that it elevates the energy. I think, I hope, I imagine.
It is so you said enthusiasm. I was saying it as joy, but it's both those things. Like you are but it's work, but yes, you're also enthusiastic about life and everything. It's even just finding these like magical moments on trains and cities, and it's a certain kind of person that can do that. It takes a certain kind of person to do that. Anyway, you are, this is one of my favorite episodes, Steve. I mean, I knew it would be anyway, but like, okay, can I ask you, and you can tell me if you're like, let's skip over that and go to the other things.
No, let's do all the things.
One of the things that I ask people on me time, because I think it's interesting, because often I feel like it's the thing that leads us to learn a lot about ourselves, is I call it a moment of impact. It can be good, it can be bad, it can be whatever it is, but whatever. It's a moment in your life that your life changes course after. So it can be anything. A lot of people, unfortunately, that can be an unpleasant thing where like they've suddenly lost a job, or like whatever. It could be the birth of your children, which of course are that goes without saying. But like a moment where you're like, wow, this thing happened and I was different after. Nothing was ever the same after this moment.
Yeah, I think that, well, there's a couple of them, and it's funny because I just did an interview with a Hollywood Reporter magazine dropping. There we go.
Hello.
Uh,
I love this.
but it was about the 25th anniversary of Big Daddy.
Oh,
And there is a moment. I was working at Disneyland at the time. If you if you've heard anything about me, you know this story. So I'll skip ahead. But I was working at Disneyland, wrote most of it in the Tiki
the tiki
Room.
town. Oh yeah.
Chris and I had gone to school together, and he was a couple years ahead. He was a manager now, and so we'd gotten an agent. We'd done that. And with this first script we're going out, I'm working at Disneyland, and I'm also, my second job is I am working on the desk of this movie of the week company, which was awesome, and I learned so much from it.
Remember
And
the week? My God.
yeah,
Yeah.
the old movies of the week,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And it was for the lady who produced Tori Spelling, Mother May I Sleep with Danger, which is the greatest title ever for a movie of the week.
I love this. Was this Lifetime or something, or was this like ABC at the time? Because they
It was
all
like CBS. We used to do a Sunday night movie. It was the late 90s, the
love it.
end of the 90s.
Okay, go
So, and it was just as these things were going on. I wish they would come back because
on.
but I think they were probably too
Yeah.
expensive to make. But it was so great. I learned so much from, the lady was Carla Singer. She's a producer, and she was so smart about using money and about spreading her budget around, and development, and it was just me. She usually had a development executive and me, and, and
Wow,
I
that's
was a marginal to terrible assistant, but I was really good at going downstairs and getting the coffee. So I was all I
stop
was
it.
always happy, but I was answering the phones, and I was just like, it had gone out the day before, and I'm like, I'm not going to ask. I'm just going to let it go, and I'm just going to be chill. I'm doing everything I can to not ask. I didn't call Chris, and then I get a call, and I answer the phone, and Chris says, "Are you curious?" and and we had an offer, and it was Columbia,
Oh
and
my God.
it was like, oh my God, everything's going to change. And then nothing changed because I stayed at Disneyland for a while, and I stayed at the office because they're like, you're not going to get paid for forever.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
stayed for a long time. But that moment of Chris saying, "Are you curious?" is always going to stick with me, because I knew that at the very least nothing was going to change, and it or that that something would change.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing is, like, I have sold something.
Yeah.
And at that point, my goal was stay. I had this idea that if you stayed in the business 5 years, you were allowed to have insurance. And that was what I was looking for.
I just want insurance for staying or for being here for 5 years. Steve, that's incredible though. Like that is a huge moment of impact. That's the day. That's the day. That's when it changed.
Yeah.
It
And
became,
so,
then that movie became that movie. My
yeah,
God.
and that movie got made, and then suddenly I was doing rewrites in movies, and then they say, you want to try television? I said, yeah. I was making half hours, and then the first time I try something always works out. So my first 1 hour was Psych, and then, like, well, that worked out really good. And
Yeah.
and by the way, the day I was in a movie theater, in the middle of a movie, when I got the call from Jackie DeCrinnis that they'd picked up the show to series.
Oh
And
my God, I have
And I'm in the movie theater. I'm writing notes on napkins for other things and I'm trying to work on. And then I get this call and I go, well, that's a universal number. So I go out into the lobby. I stand by the popcorn. I point it out to my kids every time. I go, that's where I was standing when Psych got picked up. But it was they're like, okay, well, we're gonna pick it up. And I'm like, well, that's easy. Great. Let's
That's it.
do
It's
this.
a phone call and it's done. And oh my God. Oh my God, though. Like, I love
Yeah.
oh, exactly the popcorn stand where you're standing. Of course. It's like time stands still in those moments.
Yeah, and I guess all of it revolves around popcorn.
And I'll
So
oh my God, Steve. Oh, Jackie DeCrin has been a guest on Me Time.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
She told the story on I was maybe it was on the psychologist
She's
pod.
done both. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she said that I pitched it amazing the first time, and then I came back and I pitched it terrible, which I completely disagree with. But here's the problem with me. This is a problem why I is and Chris tells me to stop doing this is like I consider each pitch a performance. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to do the same show twice.
Oh, I
I
love it.
I mix up the set list from that. I'm gonna play the hits,
Right.
right? And I'm
Right.
probably gonna open with the same thing and I'm gonna close with the same thing. But I actually am like I'm because I did a little stand-up in college. I always want to try to work in new bits for the act.
I love
And
this.
I
And
I was
some
I
of them
was
landed and some of them did. You have to workshop that stuff, I
oh
guess,
my God.
going in the room.
If you were
Yeah.
at Disneyland in the mid to late 90s or even in the early 90s and you got on my Jungle Cruise boat, there would be one joke at the dock for the supervisors that was proper to that. And then at the very end, I was back on script. The rest of it is like, where are you from, ma'am? Where are you from? I was doing my crowd work
Oh my
on
God.
the Jungle Cruise boat.
I love
So
this so
it
much.
was it was a ton of fun. And by the way, theme parks.
Yes.
Another
Mm.
weird thing to do myself that I love to do. I
I
love to go.
hate theme parks. I don't know why that gave me a
Maggie's thumbs down the theme park.
I didn't. But also, you know what? I actually am not a huge fan of theme parks, but but that wasn't why that happened. Okay, but tell me.
Well, I love to write in theme parks, not just because that's where I was learning to write and where I was writing. It is an overwhelming cacophony of sounds that are changing and textures and environments and aromas all wherever you go. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like when I was in film school and when I was an undergrad, I would often do my homework in the park, either because I got to work or because I was still on the clock at work. And like the best place for me to go to wrap trains and theme parks together, I get on the Disneyland Railroad and I would,
Stop
with
it.
my script, and just ride around. And it was amazing, except for that whole part where it goes into the primeval world, where there's the dinosaurs and the old Grand Canyon. It's dark and you can't get nothing done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Steve, this is great. I love the tie-in with the train and also the amusement park. Not surprising then that you worked there.
well,
Uh,
of course, that makes perfect sense to everyone who's ever met me, and that
yeah,
of course is where I met Tim Melchiger, one of our great writers on Psych,
the best.
and the guitarist on the theme song for the show,
That's
and who ended up writing a handful of songs for the series,
beautiful.
especially
Oh,
Dulays. What was it? Something I said, and the great song from the Clue episode that actually two he wrote two songs in the Clue episode. He wrote the
wait.
singing telegram song.
Oh
Uh,
my God, I forgot about that. That's so
yeah, and he wrote Billy Lips's song "Together Alone"
yeah. Yes, that is what it's called, right? Alone
yes,
Together
Alone
Alone.
together. Yeah, yeah, together. So so much good can come out of a theme park. But I do appreciate people who hate theme parks because I don't want to go when they're crowded. I don't want to go
Yeah.
in the summer. I don't want to go when it's hot. But I do love a great theme park when it's dead, if there's been a big storm or something, or going by yourself,
Get that.
because I will bring my script. Once again, if I have a deadline that I have to meet, I will bring my script with me and I'll just, back in the old days when there was a people mover, amazing. You sit there and you roll around the entire park. You come back 15 minutes later, you've got 12 good ideas. You can find little tables. There's less and less of that these days, but you find a nice place to go. The hotels, before
Oh,
they started kicking you out of the lobby, we would go over to the Grand Californian. In fact, the lobby of the Grand Californian, there's right off the lobby, there is a bar, and that's where Tim and I came up with 1967, A Psych Odyssey,
what?
because Tim was like, I don't know what to do, and I said, well, we're gonna have to pull out the big guns. Let's go over to the hotel. And we sat there and we're leaning back, and it's an old Craftsman reconstruction of kind of like the Awani Hotel up in Yosemite.
Oh,
And we're just looking up at the ceiling, and it's like, what about time travel? And we're like, well, okay, well, hold on a second. We've tried time travel before, but what about a case that's set in the past? And then knowing that it's really hard to make stuff from the 30s and 40s, so let's go back just as far as we can with what we have in Vancouver. And the late 60s
wow.
ended up working out. So we often write to our locations,
I
but
love
it was an awesome day. We drank Cuba Libres, which I never drank before, which are delicious, by the way.
the Cuba Libre.
Yes, it was Coke and rum and some sort of mint or something. I don't think I've had them since then,
I love it. Oh my God, I
but
love
it's a great drink. And I
Cuba
know, of
Libre.
course, that Maggie, that you like martinis, of
I do like
course.
martinis.
We know that from the psychologist pod, and of course from me time.
For me, from both. Yes, I do like a martini. I love a martini, but I also love wine. So I'm not a big mixed drink person, but I do love a margarita, like a spicy margarita.
Yes, of course, those are always good. My
Especially a themed drink. Like if I'm at a place, if I'm at a tiki bar, I don't want like a glass of wine. I
Yeah,
want,
exactly.
yeah, I
So
want a Cuba Libre.
yeah, exactly. The Cuba Libre is an amazing thing, and it sounds cool. And I generally, when I get a mixed drink, I get something that when the waiter comes and sets down our drinks with me and my wife, they're gonna set the one they think is for my wife in front of me,
The
because
pink one with whipped cream and a cherry on top. The slush.
my favorite martini, the greatest martini in the history of martinis, the lemon drop martini. It is it is
You are a
perfect
sorority girl.
the perfect drink. That's right.
It
It's like
is a good drink, though. I have to say,
I
good starter, like a lemon drop. It's a good starter. I thought you were going to say Cosmo because
no, 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 no. I don't like the Cosmo. I don't know what it is.
it's not sweet enough for you, Steve.
And that's what it is. I have a good friend who also I met at Disneyland, who is part of the band. Initially was our first drummer, and he is a legit cocktail drinker. So
Ooh,
he's always like, here's this thing from 1912. Try
oh,
it. And it's got smoky bitters and a rock. And
and then
and
fizzy egg white and like a whole thing. Yes, and
yeah, yeah,
a rock,
it's got a rock and a stick
volcanic
from the
rock.
side of the road, and so and I'll taste it, and it's like it tastes good, but I'm not gonna enjoy it for that much of the glass.
Right.
So it's like I'll taste it and I go, and it's $24 for this.
You're like, where is my slushy margarita? Where is
I
my
know.
colada?
And by the way, for James, who is, Tim Amundsen is the most prolific drinker in his drinking prime that
Yes,
I know.
yes, true.
But James is second to me.
Yes, true.
And James, he loves the slushy drink there at Joey. And the great thing though is when you go to Vancouver, you forget how cheap the drinks are in Vancouver. And so you can drink a lot and not break the bank and lose track of yourself.
Lose track of yourself. I love putting it that way.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, there's a reason for that, right? And that is that most of the drinks, which I love for that reason, that we don't lose track of ourselves, they're singles. Where
Yes.
in the States, almost everything is a double. Like if you're getting, so we love these drinks called the vodka soda supernovas at Joey in Vancouver. And in Vancouver, you have to ask for a double. Otherwise, if you want like a stronger drink, but like say after work or something, that's like, no, no, no. I just want my single. But the problem with that is you're like, they're just singles. It's fine. And then you
Uh-huh.
have four, because, and then you've ruined the whole reason. But I think that, That's one of the reasons the drinks up there, I think, are a little bit cheaper. I will say I recently went to the Joey in downtown LA. Did you know that there's a Joey in downtown LA?
I have not been to that one.
It is great.
Is it like downtown, downtown, like
Yeah, downtown Los.
Figueroa or something?
Yes, it's like down by I think it's down by like LA Live. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I had gone to like a concert and I didn't kind of track where it was and anyway, and the vodka soda supernovas are like served in bowls. They're massive. I was like, this is not my sweet little Vancouver single vodka soda supernova, but it was fantastic.
We went in the afternoon and it was happy hour, which I'd never gotten there during the actual happy hour time.
Yeah.
With the exception of of sometimes with the rewrites with James, we would meet at 10 a.m. and be done at 1 a.m. And
True. Yes.
but we went and our bill was $28. And I'm like, this is a mistake. You need to charge me a lot more. And they were $5 each.
Oh my
And
God, that's
it
so
was crazy. And we had a short amount of time, but and they also they and now they were just supernovaing everything. It's like a rum and coke, and also here's the supernova slush, and they call it a rum and coca nova. Probably
Oh,
not that,
yes. Well,
but
there's
they
the
should.
supersonic, vodka tonic. They all have their little names for things. Okay,
Yes.
Steve,
Okay.
things you can't live without.
Three things I can't live without. Well, I mean, obviously there's the obvious. There's like, oxygen and your family
Your
and
children, your wife.
purpose.
Yes, yes.
Those are obvious. But I think if we're thinking of three things that you can't live without,
Right
I
now, it doesn't have to be throughout your whole life. It can literally just be like, here, these are my, I must have, or I'm in a bad mood.
I think it's something that's seasonal too, these days. But I think we have to go with the monster cereals, right?
I think we have to go with.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm talking about like, like Count Chocula, should certainly. Count Chocula is important, right?
Oh my God, I
Part
forgot
of
about
the
Count
Yeah, oh
Chocula.
yeah. They only come out around Halloween. So it's
Oh my God,
so
is that true, Steve?
yeah, yeah. So they come out. And then of course there's Frankenberry, which is very important. You need
Wait,
to, I mean, that's part of the big three, but I don't want to waste all two because there's also Boo Berry,
the
which is the
blueberry.
blueberry. When I was a kid, this was my favorite.
How do you have these? It's not Halloween.
Well, here's the thing. I waited too long to eat them, and they were all in the cabinet, and so they really need to get thrown out. But but here's the great thing about the monster cereals is there's actually a second tier. It's like the Marvel universe, and there's the rarities like Fruit Brute,
This is
which
made up. You have made this
this is
up.
Fruit Brute. This is a classic, and it's a werewolf, and it looks
I love
exactly
him.
look, I don't understand how they can get away with this because it looks exactly like Frankenberry.
It does.
But Fruit Brutes but this year, finally they're getting into the 21st century, and they finally come up with a new one, Carmela
I
Creeper.
love her.
So she's really cool, and it's about time that they have a lady that comes in here.
That's what I was just about to say.
It's
Represent.
Yeah, it's artificially flavored caramel apple cereal.
Okay.
And then of course, if you really, I mean, your head could explode,
It's already
but
exploding.
but you could go with the Monster Mash remix, which is all of them mixed together, including the hardest to find. It's the Honus Wagner baseball card of the Monster cereals. This is Yummy Mummy, which I've only found within Monster the Monster Remix family. So that's something really important. And there's reading involved too. So you get like this is all part of the packaging. So they don't charge extra for this. This is just part of it. So that could be one of the things. Oh,
Oh, so Linus wanted to come up and say hi. Wait, you have the A and B team of monster cereals?
I
Just
think you oh, it's so cute. Yes, yes, indeed. And I think you have to. I think
this is a must.
I'm what they call a completist. Like some
Yeah.
people will.
you.
They'll buy fine paintings. Other people, other people will collect, cards or stamps or fine pieces of furniture. For me, it's the monster cereal.
Inspired cereal. Oh, okay.
Yes, and
There's
I'm still on an elusive journey of learning and understanding to find the yummy mummy.
got to
And
find the yummy mummy. Psychos, if you're listening, this is your new challenge. Okay. Um,
so
so that
so
was
if
one. That
if
doesn't
that was counted as one,
yes.
and I think we have to take it into like food categories too, because like I mean, obviously we already talked about the bow nuts at Biscuit Love in Franklin and Nashville, and actually various locations around the greater Tennessee area, but also the chicken teriyaki bowl at Moss 2 in Santa Ana, California. One
Okay.
of the great things of all time, and Moss 2 is this small chain of like those old Taco Bells that the original building with the
Oh
arch and
yes.
all that, and the spot where the bell would have been is no
Yes.
longer. That's their sweet spot. So they move into those buildings 60 to 70 years after they've closed, maybe 50 or 60 years. That's one of the great things, and you can get it skinless
Uh-huh.
with with always the green onions. That's a
Us
that's a
too.
really good one.
Chicken teriyaki bowl. I love this. I love that this is
Yeah.
food related.
Yeah, and of course, and then we talked about the buttermilk fried chicken at Nightingale. So if you're doing food, that's great. You can, if you want to, we want to just go general food, like a good barbecue restaurant is life-changing to me. I love any, and by the way, I will take up a seat in a barbecue restaurant and and perhaps slow down the waiter's day, but I'm a very good tipper under those
Yeah.
circumstances.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'll try not to.
I think we're crossing all kinds. I don't think we're just in general food. I feel like we've from the cereal to Moss 2 and bow nuts to barbecue.
And
Bring I'm hungry now.
if we want to open it up even further, Cuban food is
Okay.
extra. I don't know if I've ever had. I've gone to a place that is bad Cuban food,
Okay.
and
I love this. I
the
love
plantains and the rice and the just it's the perfect synthesis of flavors.
just about to say it's a perfect blend. It all blends really well together. I don't know where you can have sweet and fried and rice. No, I love this, Steve.
Yeah, it's good. And
Yeah.
the harder it is to find the Cuban place, the better the restaurant is.
That's I feel like that's true of a lot of things actually. And with all your travels, you probably know that. Like you would know the even the street foods, even like Jabba Dog in Vancouver. And yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
when James goes to a city that's uncool, he calls me and says, "All right, where do I eat there?"
See? I love that. I love that you know this.
So yeah, and I think the best Cuban food I ever had was in a place in Key West, and I don't know the name of it, and I don't know what street it's on, but it's in the middle of a neighborhood. So you go down to the end of Duval Street to the side where the Hemingway house is over there.
Sure, there.
And of course, you wander into a neighborhood, and we just wander up and down the streets until we find this place. And it was amazing. And you're like literally sitting in like the living room, and there's a couple tables there, and the food is just so great. And you're like, how do I get home? I don't know where I am. And it makes it really, really fun.
I didn't know this about you, and I'm really impressed. You should be like, oh, funny, same names, but I love Rick Steves when I travel like
Oh, for
internationally.
sure. Yeah, love him.
Yeah. And he always finds these weird local hidden plate. You should start a blog or the Steve Franks travel eating and traveling tour book.
Yeah, but I think it would only be like uncool places. Like I like local chains. So I'm
Still.
looking for a chain restaurant that has 3 locations in a particular region. So
Okay. All right. But still,
so
maybe that could be what's so funny, what's great about it. Anyway,
yeah.
you just think about it. Okay. Next. Oh, wait, did we cover everything?
Let's see. We did that. We did with the 3. Okay. And then I would say once again, traveling somewhere new for the second, going back to somewhere new,
I
I
love
think is a
it.
key.
These are can't live
But,
without. You
but
need
yeah, and of course, the South, and then I have an unnatural love for the state of Florida, which is undeserved on its part. Um, but
What? You love Florida. That's okay.
yeah, a lot of crazy things happen in Florida. But I love the places like, I like the Keys, I like Sanibel Island, I
Yeah.
like the Panhandle. There's a lot that's fun for me, that's fun for me, and
I
a
feel like
lot.
the Gulf of Mexico is very underrated in like its beauty. I feel like all that panhandle area is so stunning and the water in the summertime is so warm. And then you get all these different feels because you get Atlantic, Pacific, the Gulf, you get, no, sorry, Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico. You have like the Miami version, but then like the Panama City version or destination.
Yeah.
And like there are so many different feels in Florida.
Yeah, and the Space Coast is also a
Yeah.
world unto itself,
Yeah.
and the former home of Kelly Kolchak, who grew up near Cape Canaveral, which is a very exciting aspect of Kelly's life. Um, who has all the stories to tell,
Oh, I love Kelly Kolchak. Kelly was our other executive producer on Psych. For those of you listening who aren't Psych listeners, but I think you
and
are.
and Kelly, by the way, the greatest walking story breaker of all time.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so Kelly, if you go on a walk with Kelly and you don't come back with an episode, something is wrong with you at your core. So,
She's that good.
so
Oh, good to know.
we would all land in Vancouver for an episode if the three of us were coming, or two of us, and Kelly and I would start walking the seawall. And if we didn't have something by the time you came around to, let's say, the Brockton Oval, which is the deepest cut
Oh, and
reference I can make about Stanley Park.
oh yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. I get lost. I still get lost in Stanley Park.
Yeah, I don't know what the Brockton Oval is supposed to be. It's an oval shaped grass area, and I think they had gladiator fights there sometime in the past.
This, love this. Yeah.
But it's right there, just past the aquarium, and just before Beaver Lake, which is another place that you must walk around. And it's a great place to have done your walk, because if you're at a hotel downtown, you've now been walking at least an hour to get
Yes.
there.
I love that about Vancouver because you just keep going and you're going to get a great walk in. Because, a lot of times in places it's like, I'll just stay in the neighborhood. Or Vancouver's you just go, keep going to the end of the seawall, keep going into Stanley Park, and you will have walked 9 miles before the day is over.
And
Yeah.
I have done that on many occasions, and I actually have topped that. I walked on the day that we were I this is something, talk about me time. When we made Psych the movie 3, you had to do this thing where you would quarantine yourself for 2 weeks in a hotel and try not to go completely insane. And the day I got out, I'd done all the scouting for the episode. I'd done it over Zoom, and so everybody done it. So I ended up walking to every one of my locations that was within 5 miles, and I ended up with, I think, 30,000 steps, which I believe is around 15 miles of walking. And I just kept walking and walking. I was so happy to be outside,
Oh, I
and
love that.
it was great to be there and actually see all this stuff on not a little tiny Zoom screen.
Yeah, exactly. Steve, this is one of wait, did we miss anything?
No, I think we did it all. I think we've covered it all.
Truly one of my most favorite episodes of Me Time, like ever. I honestly, I can't, like, you're very, I want to just say this because I feel like you are truly one of you use the word enthusiastic. I say joyful people that I know. And the way you talk about life and how you experience it and what inspires you, it makes total sense that you're happy because you find inspiration in all of these interesting places and then you go and experience them. It's one thing to kind of know that and never do it. It's another that you live in it all the time. And I absolutely I love that. I
Well,
think it's the coolest.
and the thing I think people forget is too, it's like, oh, you're happy all the time. And it's like, well, that's not the case. But it's also it's work. It's
Yeah.
work to be happy. You have to, a lot of times you have to look for what's good or to overcome something that's not good. And there's like lots and lots of low moments. But if you can search out for what's the positivity, and they always say it's not your life, it's how you look at your life. And those are simple and easy little truisms, I guess.
Yeah.
But they're truisms because they're true.
Yeah.
And and
That's
they're mon and they're monster cereals because they're monster good, right?
and they're very stale if they came out at Halloween
By
last.
the way, unfortunately, all of these are getting thrown out because I waited too long. And here's the sad thing. This one, May 20th, 2024.
Oh
Too bad.
no, you
Yeah,
just
it's sad.
missed it.
But here's the worst part. I had forgotten because I have a very large cereal shelf. This one embarrassingly is the 8th of June, 2023.
Oh,
There's no way that this is even edible for a human. So,
see.
but the good news is soon, probably around September, we're going to start seeing them show up in the aisles of Target. And I'm going to be there scooping them up one by one.
I everyone is now. I forgot
Boy,
about it. I just love this. I love that this is the thing.
yeah.
I forgot about Count Chocula. How could I forget? But
And for those people who are the ultimate bargain hunters, those people waiting for Prime Day, right? Here's
which is here. We're in
yeah,
prime time right now.
imagine what this costs on November 1st. Holy crap. This
Yeah,
could be so cheap.
89 cents.
It could be. It could be. So
I love it. And so he's also part of his me time is bargain shopping.
it
Love
just
it.
comes in.
Steve, thank you so much. You're just the greatest. Everyone knows it. Everyone loves you. Let's make another movie or reboot the show or do something so that we can all be on set together again soon or go to another SiteCon. Any and all of those things.
Let's do all of those at the
Let's,
same time.
let's do all of them at the same time.